Welcome to Navigating Now, real talk for rocky times. A Pete the Planner CalmCast.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's CalmCast. I believe it's May 8th. Let's look. It's May 8th. 2 p.m. Eastern, every Tuesday and Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern, we get together for 10 minutes. You either watch it live or you listen on the Pete the Planner podcast stream and you learn something. Maybe. That's the point. Here's who's here. People who are served by your Moneyline. Of course, as you know, at your Moneyline, you can just log into your Moneyline app, run your financial life from said app, and then call your coaches to fix all the stuff between. Don't believe that's a word. And welcome to the general public as well. Oddly enough, I feel a lot of validation around the idea that I'm doing this series over, I think I'm doing 10 weeks of this. I just had this feeling on Liberation Day that I need to liberate words out of my mouth every Tuesday and Thursday at 2 p.m. And the validation is this. There's going to be some fast-moving news cycles, and that is what has happened since we last gathered, which was 48 hours ago. The Fed held steady on interest rates, okay? And oddly enough, we don't talk about this a lot. I don't talk about China on the Navigating Now CalmCast. But I should sometimes. So obviously we're in a trade war with China. That, unless you've been asleep, that's what's happening. And you know that President Trump has been putting pressure on the Fed to lower interest rates so we can be more competitive within this trade war, that we can stomach more pain, if you will. I don't mean that negatively. I mean sort of mechanically. China has done just that. They've actually lowered their version of their Fed rate to make borrowing less expensive to spur businesses as they try to survive and compete and still grow during this trade war with the United States. So this is all real and happening in real time. So who knows how that'll play out, but I will say this. This morning, you likely saw that President Trump announced via a social media and then later traditional media, the first trade deal with the UK. So as you might imagine, it's going to take a day or two for us to figure out the complexities of that trade deal. It's not really for me to say whether it's a good deal or a bad deal. You make your own decisions on that, but I will talk about the mechanics of it possibly next Tuesday. But alas, here are the three topics for today, because this is about three topics. This is how the show works. It's sort of interesting to me. First, we're going to talk about diversification. All right. We're going to talk about diversifying your investment portfolio and the value in doing that. We're going to talk about the recession or what a recession is. I feel like we've had this conversation a lot, honestly. We talked about GDP on Tuesday, but I want to talk about recession more specifically today, not out of fear or it's coming or anything like that, just out of like, what is it? When do we know it's over? One of those things. It's like an earthquake. And then finally, a sinking fund. We're going to talk sinking fund. It's a personal finance thing. And it's really smart. But if I'm being honest, it's tough to execute on if you've got financial behavior issues. And like everything in life, if you have behavior issues, it would help you if you actually did said advice, which is the sinking fund. We'll talk about it in a second. Let's start with diversification. Tuesday, I should say, we talked about asset allocation, which is choosing specific asset classes so that you've got the right risk reward balance within your portfolio. You know, sometimes things go up, and then oddly, there's like this opposite type of asset that can go down during that period and vice versa. And that itself can create balance. Today, it's diversification, which is man, idioms are fun. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. You've heard that one if you've got a parent or grandparent, but it's the idea that if you place a bet on one thing and one thing alone, the chances of said bet going wrong arguably are 50-50, right? And you can increase your odds of success by diversifying the elements of your bet. I too regret that I'm discussing investing through the lens of betting, because it's not exactly betting. Think of it this way. If you say to yourself, I need to invest money in an oil company, but I'm just picking something. Don't read into that. This is not investment advice. All right. As my daughter once said,
this is for information purposes only. It's not the Swiss financial planning device. Consult a financial advisor.
So this is not advice, right? Let's say you want to invest in an oil company, okay? And you're like, okay, well, my bet is going on this company. Diversification is to say, I'm actually going to choose two companies and I'm going to put 50% in this one and 50% in this one. And that will take advantage of my need to invest in that particular type of thing. That is diversification. Another way we think about diversification is when you find something good that you like from an investing standpoint. Oh, I like this stock, or I like this industry. It's not unusual to keep doubling down, going, oh, well, this is going well. Let's put more money to it. And let's put more money to it. Typically, that's a bad strategy. It is a bad idea. Think of it like this. You finish dinner, you're going to grab a piece of cake, 7-layer chocolate cake, right? 7-layer chocolate cake. And it's delicious. And you're like, well, that was good. I'm going to have more of that. In fact, tomorrow night at dinner, I'm not going to have dinner. I'm going to have chocolate cake and then more chocolate cake. And then you're like, wait, this no longer makes sense. This no longer is right. So that's diversification. It's just, I say hedging a bet, but again, let's stop talking about betting. Next, recession. Recession, as we've talked about from an academic technical perspective, is when you have 2 quarters of GDP contraction. We talked GDP on Tuesday. I hope you listened. GDP, gross domestic product. If it goes backwards quarter over quarter, that's called contraction as opposed to growth or expansion. And if you have 2 quarters in a row or 6 months total of contraction, that's a recession. The weirdest thing about a recession is recession, oddly enough, ends up being a solution to a problem, even though it's a problem itself. So a way to think about that is if companies are not profitable and things are bad in the economy shrinks to solve the problem. It shrinks so then it can get the right number of workers. It can get the right level of investment. That's a tough pill to swallow. I'm going to be honest, because let's say you get laid off because the economy's in a recession and you hear some person like me say, don't worry, you getting laid off is the cure to this challenge. That's actually true. It's oversimplified, but it's true. And it's not comforting at all. And it's also not cool to hear from me, but it's true. Briefly, before we go, let's talk about a sinking fund. So you ever buy a car, okay, and you know a car is a disposable asset. I guess we'll call it that. I'm not sure it is. But anyway, you know that eventually you're not going to be able to drive that car. You're going to have to get a different car. No matter how long you drive that car, whether you're a 10, 12-year car driver, for some reason you're a 4-year car driver, whatever, you know that at some other time you're going to have to make a purchase of another car. Just work with me here. What a sinking fund is the day you buy the car, then every month thereafter, you start making deposits. So when you have to buy the next car, you can already pay for it in cash because you have the money. There's a lot of things like this. A vacation, you can have a sinking fund for a vacation. Car is not uncommon. It's the idea that you know you're going to spend it, but you're saving. Another way to think about that too is, let's say you make your insurance payment on your car every 6 months as opposed to monthly. Putting money in that savings account associated specifically for the insurance payment every month, even though you pay it semi-annually, is in itself a sinking fund. It's an amazing power move for very, very organized people. And if you often get surprised by things that aren't that surprising, try a sinking fund. I think it's great. All right, that's it for this week. We're going to learn a lot, probably over the weekend, probably tomorrow and later tonight, about the first trade deal. So I'll come back and give you the facts and facts alone next week here on the CalmCast. Thanks. Have a great weekend, and we will see you next Tuesday, 2 p.m. Eastern.